Welcome to this explainer. Today, we're cracking open a massive, completely hidden vulnerability in U.S. national security. It's a digital blind spot so huge and honestly so deeply baked into our internet economy that it almost sounds like science fiction. But it is very real, and it directly impacts the men and women protecting the country. Okay, let's dive into this. Consider this chilling question. Could a foreign government actually buy the exact location, the personal details, and the private vulnerabilities of active duty U.S. troops? And could they do it for literally just pennies? Well, the answer is yes. And the going rate? 12 cents. Yep, just 12 cents. It's absolutely wild. That is exactly how cheaply human lives, operational security, and highly sensitive military secrets are being priced and actively sold in the digital underworld right now. Section 1. The Shadow Data Market, a multi-billion-dollar unregulated industry. So we are exploring a multi-billion-dollar industry that operates entirely in the shadows. And the crazy part? It's perfectly legal. To wrap our heads around this, we really need to define our main antagonist here, the data broker. These are companies whose entire business model revolves around gathering, inferring, and selling your data. They scrape public records, embed invisible trackers into the everyday mobile apps you're probably using right now, and track your purchases just to build these incredibly comprehensive profiles on, well, virtually everyone. A massive year-long study by researchers at Duke University's Sanford School of Public Policy really laid bare the total lack of oversight here. They found that, quote, these inconsistent practices are highly unregulated by the U.S. government, meaning collecting and selling incredibly granular, sensitive data to almost anyone? That's just standard business. Section 2. Hunting for military data, scraping the digital underworld.
Now, what's really interesting about this is how much military data is actually floating around out there. The university researchers built a custom program to scrape 533 different data broker websites. Just notice the sheer scale of the findings here. The word military yielded a massive 7,278 hits hidden in the code streams of these sites. Veteran wasn't far behind. So this demographic isn't some tiny niche market. They are actively, aggressively targeted.
And we need to be very clear about something. This isn't just illicit dark web activity happening on some hidden hacker forum. Massive, well-known, publicly traded industry giants, think companies like Oracle and Experian, prominently feature military data terms in their marketing. This is mainstream corporate America. These brokers advertise shockingly specific packages. The researchers found one explicitly touting a dataset literally titled Hardcore Military Families. I mean, it's a vivid, almost dystopian illustration of how aggressively these companies commodify sensitive demographics just for a profit. Section 3. Going undercover to buy. A digital stakeout. Of course, it's one thing to see these datasets advertised, right? It's a completely different thing to actually buy them. So the researchers went undercover, and the tradecraft they used is fascinating. To mask their true identities, they used freshly wiped Chromebooks and routed their connections through Chicago VPNs. They bought burner feature phones with cash, even wearing medical masks to dodge the store cameras. Then, to simulate a foreign buyer, they routed their traffic through a Singaporean VPN and set up a completely unverified .asia domain. They essentially wanted to test if U.S. military secrets would actually be sold to Asia. And this brilliantly illustrates the vast gap between what these companies claim they do and the reality of their operations. Because while many brokers will tout strong security and verification policies to protect consumers, the reality on the ground is that several of them barely even check who is actually buying the data. Take this one particularly shocking interaction, for example. A vendor, referred to as Broker 4, told the researchers they needed to verify their identity over the phone, but only if they paid by credit card. Then, the broker casually added that if they just sent a direct wire transfer, identity verification would be skipped entirely. Cash is king, apparently. So they wired the money, and boom, the data was theirs. No background check whatsoever. Section 4. Pennies per soldier, the real cost of national security. So let's look at the actual transaction. Let's bring back that number from the beginning. 12 cents. Using their U.S. domain, the researchers bought individually identified contact data on 5,000 active duty military personnel. The final receipt broke down to precisely 12.5 cents per service member. But what happens when you introduce the Trojan horse? When you actively pose as a foreign entity using that .asia domain And a Singaporean IP address? Well, the cost goes up just a tiny bit, to 32 cents per record. But the terrifying part is that the data broker demonstrated absolutely zero restrictions on its ability to sell sensitive, active-duty military data to a foreign domain. And what exactly did those pennies buy? A horrifyingly specific level of personal detail. We're talking full names and home addresses, personal emails, cell phone numbers, net worth and credit ratings, detailed health information, and checkboxes for medical conditions, even their religious affiliations and interest in gambling or casinos, all of it just bundled up and handed over in a simple spreadsheet. So the crucial point is that they didn't just get some random scattering of data. These brokers actually allow buyers to draw digital borders, geofences, around highly sensitive military installations. The researchers specifically purchased data geofenced to Fort Bragg, Fort A.B. Hill, and Quantico. They pinpointed the exact individuals working right in the heart of the nation's defense infrastructure. Section 5. A national security threat. The consequences of unregulated data. We really have to connect the dots here between a 12-cent purchase and the severe physical threat it poses. Think about the irony for a second. We spend billions fortifying the perimeters of military bases, yet it means absolutely nothing if the troops inside can be digitally tracked through their smartphones. Foreign actors could use this financial and health data for blackmail and coercion. They can physically track personnel, push micro-targeted disinformation, or even expose the identities of undercover intelligence operatives based solely on their location history. Let's move to and see how this builds to a chilling conclusion straight from the researchers' report. Quote, anyone with a few $100s can obtain the same type of data and use it for any purpose, good or bad. There is no safety net here, folks. It is an entirely open market. Which leaves us with a deeply unsettling reality to ponder as we wrap up this explainer. If an unverified buyer with an internet connection and a few $100 can legally purchase the personal vulnerabilities and exact locations of the world's most powerful military, is anyone truly secure?